How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and it is my absolute pleasure to get to this is no introduction. Everybody knows who you are. This is Daniel Warren Johnson, DWJ. Thank you so much for being here on the channel.
You are so welcome. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. You have a wonderful family already. I love it. I got a poem about how cool I was.
Yeah, I don't think she's written me a poem in over a decade. So yeah. And a big thank you to this Shannon and the folks at Skybound for making this interview possible, and thank you everybody for joining us. So we are going to be talking to Daniel Warren Johnson today, talking about his projects and the big Kickstarter he's got going on right now with Extremity. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm a huge fan. Since Space Mullet, one day, Daniel, I'd love to see that come back. And I know I can't be alone. I can't be alone with Space Mullet.
You are not alone. I get many a question about it.
Okay. But yeah, since your stuff at Dark Horse, and then my goodness, people just, I just kept seeing your name everywhere. It was amazing. And then like Beta Ray Bill, and then you did Wonder Woman Dead Earth. And then when the rumors came about Transformers and Skybound, I will be honest with you, dude. I like the name Daniel Warren Johnson. I didn't even think. I was like, what? Daniel Warren Johnson on Transformers? They're not wrestlers. What's going on? And sure enough, man, been knocking it out of the park every month. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, were you a fan of Transformers growing up as a kid? Like the toys, the comics, or the cartoon?
First, it was the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was the toys, but I was not able to get a lot of them. They were quite expensive. And they were also kind of like the reruns were still on when I was watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you could find them in the store, sometimes you couldn't. And then as I kind of like got a little older, you couldn't find Transformers anymore in the toy stores, or at least not the ones I wanted. So it was mostly the TV show. And then I was pretty sheltered as a kid. My mom and dad were not a fan of the intense 90s comics, violence and so on. So I was, I was allowed to read the old comics like Silver Age, Spider-Man, and things like that. So I found out that Transformers was also a comic series that Marvel had put out, and it was old enough that it was like pretty tame. So my mom and dad would allow me to read those. And I read the crap out of those comics. I mean, I had a bunch of them. And, there's a stretch of comics in Transformers, the Marvel series, where Optimus Prime doesn't have a body. He just has like a floating head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real bummer. Because like this is back in the 90s when like comic shops were really militant about like not opening the bags. And so I was guessing like, is Optimus Prime going to be in here, like with his whole body? So I like flipped through it. I'm like, oh no, he still doesn't have his body. Dang it! So I think it's issue 12. He gets it back. He wrecks face, but it took a while. So
I'm so glad you mentioned those, because those, the cartoon was my childhood, and I think most of us that grew up in the 80s. But the comics were just on a whole nother crazy level. Especially when Simon Furman came over from the UK and was like, yeah, let me play with the toys for a while. I'll get rid of them just like that. And Oh my gosh, it was like left and right, just taking liberties with all these characters. He just destroying each and every one of them. So being a fan of the cartoon and the comics, how did this project come about? How did you get involved with Transformers? Like, as soon as Skybound got it, were you the one that was like, hey, Robert, put me on that book, or other way around? Or
it was actually the other way around. They got the license, and or rather I should say, they reached out when they were pitching for the license. They asked me to draw something.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and they really liked what I had drawn, and they knew that I was a fan. And we'd had a great working relationship with working on Murder Falcon and Extremity before.
Yeah.
And I had worked on 3 books in between Wonder Woman, Beta Ray Bill, and do a power bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So they approached me again. Hey, like, do you want to work on Transformers? We think you'd be a great fit, you know. And I really wanted to do it. And so after a few conversations, I agreed. And yeah, the rest is history, man. I mean, I think that I had a great working relationship with Skybound in the past, and I was just like, yeah, let's go back to let's do it again. And it's been a blast to work on Transformers, man. It's been really, really fun.
I know my whole family has been enjoying it here, and I don't want to spoil what happens, but there were a lot of things that you were doing in those first few issues that, like when I was a kid, I wanted to see the Transformers do. And I know you broke a lot of hearts. Again, no spoilers, in case people are waiting for the trade paperbacks or collected editions. You made a lot of kids cry. So good job. I mean, that's what Transformers does. I mean, for anybody that has ever watched the movie, oh my gosh.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm here for.
So tell me about the Extremity. We have, by the way, we're also having a Extremity Deluxe Edition finally coming out towards the end of the year, hardcover, that's collecting the whole shebang.
Yes.
But right now, currently on Kickstarter is the Extremity Artist Edition.
Yes. So the Artist Edition, or they call it the Signature Edition, is just a book that is the raw scans of the whole Extremity series with no lettering, no color, just full color scans, full size, 11 by 17 of the actual size that I worked at. And I'm a big fan of artist editions myself. They've provided me a bunch of inspiration over the years. And, there are a lot of lines in Extremity, and this allows those lines to be celebrated to the fullest, which I'm really happy about. And, it is prohibitively expensive to make. It's a big book, 12 issues, and the whole thing is reproduced in this artist edition, this big chunky thing. So we did a Kickstarter to kind of act as a bit of a pre-order, and to get it into people's hands that care. And, it's one of these things we're never doing again. To put on the shill hat, it is not going to be reprinted. It's a one and done thing. And additionally, we're also doing the Art of Extremity. I have stacks. This is just a small fraction here, but stacks of these sketchbooks.
Oh,
Here we've got Extremity Concept Art, Volume 1. There's 3 of him here. And then I also have my regular sketchbooks, which I just did a bunch of Extremity sketches in. But
yeah,
let's see. So here's some art from the last issue, which I was working on. Trying to figure out what the robot would look like at the end of the book. And then things oh gosh, hold on, I'll find it. One sec.
Sure. Take your
Coming
time.
up with new character designs like this, in the second half of the series.
Yeah.
Coming up with art and world building. So this actually came up in an interview earlier today where someone was asking me, or someone was complimenting me on my ability to show, not tell, when it came to the world building of Extremity. And that there's not a lot of exposition in the dialogue, and that's because I did so much gosh darn concepts and thinking through everything and making everything intentional visually. And so I have these just a huge stack of these drawings that are never going to see the light of day, or I thought were never going to see the light of day, until we have this Kickstarter where not only do you get this artist edition, but you also get a little Art of Extremity, which has all of these visual breakdowns of me figuring things out in the story visually, for people to look at and enjoy. So it's really exciting. It's something I'm proud of, and I can't wait for people to get their hands on. And there's 2 days left, so if you want it.
You mentioned something about the book. You said it wouldn't be reprinted. So the only way people could get it is through the Kickstarter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, like you said, the hardcover, which will be fully colored, maybe a little bigger than regular comic book trade paperback size.
Maybe Invincible or the Savage Dragons. I assume it'll be that deluxe edition hardcover.
I think it'll be a deluxe edition, yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out in, like you said, later in the year. But yeah.
Yeah, November. I'm one of my most anticipated books. I've been looking forward to it. You have no idea like how much I love your artwork and how
Thank you.
much just like there's so much energy in it that everything you do just I immediately know it's you. And so I wait for these hardcovers. I'm like, okay, we got a Murder Falcon. Now we got Extremity coming. Maybe they'll do a power bomb one day.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll
Okay.
see.
Okay. Yeah. So I am super excited to see that you're more and more of your work, you know, getting the bigger editions, like the deluxe
Hell yeah.
hardcovers.
Me
So
too, man. I'm
really
all
cool
about
to
it.
see that. You know, when Transformers comes out, that'll be awesome too. So with Transformers and how far ahead do you stay, like in the story, and like how much do you have worked out when it comes to storytelling?
Well, it's we started about I started drawing it maybe February of last year.
Okay.
So it's been, I finished drawing it in I can't even remember when I finished drawing it, but I've been writing and drawing in tandem on that book for a while
Mhm.
because the goal was always for me to keep writing with another artist coming on afterward. And at first, I didn't have to worry about writing too far ahead because I was just kind of like worried about my own story and drawing it. And then
Mhm.
once I got towards the end of the series drawing, I was having to write issue 7, 8, and so on
Mhm.
for Jorge, and I had to stay on top of those deadlines. And that was getting a little tight, um, but I think we're back to smooth sailing now because I am writing about like an issue ahead of Jorge and who's drawing,
Mhm.
and then we're making it happen. He's really fast, which is really great. And I am not drawing Transformers anymore, obviously, so I'm able to focus on the scripts and stay ahead that way. So, but as far as like how much I have like in the future, it's pretty hazy. Like I would like to think that I have every single thing planned out, but the reality is that sometimes I have ideas that maybe don't get across the Hasbro. Uh, you know, Maybe they don't want to do that, or they don't want to do this, or logistically it won't work, or story wise it won't work. In my own head, I think it's an awesome idea, but then when I'm actually starting to write it, I'm like, that's actually a terrible idea. um, so I have like a very, very loosey goosey framework of where things are going, and it's not until I actually put proverbial pencil to paper on the script that it becomes something solid.
You mentioned Jorge. It's Jorge Corona, right? That is coming
Yes.
on board in issue number 7 to become the ongoing artist. Uh, how did that process come about? Did you know that you were like, okay, I'm gonna do the first 6 issues. That's all I'm gonna do, or did you think I'm gonna do the whole thing? I'm gonna do 12 issues. I'm gonna do 24 issues.
Well, I knew for sure that I could only do 6 issues of art. That's all I wanted to commit to.
Hmm.
Because I do love Transformers, but I also love working on my creator own stuff. And
Of
I
course.
didn't want to have to be working on Transformers for a long time, or at least that long of a time. But I was open to writing it, and so I love writing, and especially with working with talented artists is the best. We actually didn't know when I signed on. I didn't know who was going to be drawing it after me. It was
Okay.
still something that we were figuring out. So when it was revealed to me that Jorge was going to be the artist, I got really excited because he's killing it.
He's great.
um,
It's
he's
great
so
art.
talented, and he's such a good storyteller just on his own
Hmm.
that my scripts are like are artist scripts. I'm like, I
Okay.
kind of just, it's like one sentence, 2 sentences explaining things that are happening in each panel. I don't even really break things down by panel sometimes. It's just like each panel gets a sentence, but it's not like I'm saying panel 6, panel 7, panel 8, panel 9, panel 10. This poor guy, I'm cramming in as much as I can, just like I would in my own scripts, and he's
Right.
rolling with it, no problem. So get excited for issue 7. Comes out in the middle of April, and yeah, I'm pumped.
Okay. So when you're writing a script for somebody else, when you're writing a script for somebody like Jorge, do you notice that there's a change in your story? Like you tend to change it up a little bit because somebody else is drawing it? Like I'm not saying, oh, draw 10,000 people in the background because I would never see myself doing that. But to show their strengths, if you will.
Sure. I think it's more of, I think the latter, what you said. I write stories that I would love to draw, whether I'm drawing them or not.
Okay.
And, I'm thinking visually about these things. I am obviously thinking about plot, but as I'm writing them, I'm trying to think of like, what are the set pieces in this issue that are going to be standouts art-wise? What is going to challenge me? What is going to make people excited? What's going to be a big reveal that can get other people excited? Because I don't want to write something that I won't have fun drawing, of course. But it's not just stuff that's easy. It has to be like stuff that's cool enough that I will want to kind of throw down the gauntlet. Like I want to like really bring my A game. And that's the only way I know how to write. So that's how I'm doing it with these scripts for Jorge. And he is, of course, bringing his A game. So, if every once in a while in the script, I'll be like, hey, sorry about this. We need a lot of Transformers in the background here. That's pretty rare, I would hope. But I just make stories that I want to read, and I just write scripts that I get excited about. And I know how I would do them and how I would approach them, but it's really fun to see how somebody else problem solves. It's part of the magic. And, if anything is different, I would say because of the ongoing nature of Transformers, the style of writing is different, where, I have this thing where it's like, if you give somebody an itch on their back, you got to scratch it pretty soon, but the reality is Ravage has still not been fixed. And, so that's all I'll say about that. I have to change my approach to storytelling in that way, and it's a bit of a different muscle to flex, which honestly is fun and different. It's something I'm not super used to, and I think that people are not necessarily used to seeing me make. Because I always have an end to things. That's how I like to operate. But of course, Transformers is a little bit like pro wrestling. Every week you get something new and something new and something new and something new, and that's part of what makes it special and exciting too. So. It's just different strokes.
So you had mentioned Ravage, so I'm curious because a lot of us that grew up with the cartoon or the comics or even the toys gravitated towards certain characters. Have you made some fans mad by some of the choices with the robots that you have taken off the table for now?
I think so. I think that
you're doing your job right.
I think for the most part, though. Like, the Transformers community is pretty well aware that Bumblebee has been relatively overused for the past 10 years.
Does have a movie franchise too.
He does, and it was time for him to go. So people feign indignance, but they're also like, but yeah, I get it. It makes sense. Whereas I saw some people were not happy with Cliffjumper's choice at the end of issue 6. Thinking that might be a little bit out of character, but at some point, you gotta give people a little swerve and give people little hints of something new. And of course, I want to celebrate what the characters have been known for and their personalities, but I'm not sticking to it like a Bible. I'm pushing and pulling, and things are gonna get crazy.
I think it's really interesting because we have so many different universes, so many incarnations of these characters. So you have to do your own thing.
It's true.
And I think we as fans, we become creatures of habit. So, when people are talking about Cliffjumper or what happened to Bumblebee, it's kind of like a staple of like, well, where's Bumblebee? Why would he do that? He'll be back in the next issue. But I'm loving all the changes. And that's the beauty of starting over with a brand new universe. You don't need to have read anything beforehand, and you don't need to have watched anything beforehand. But you'll want to collect the toys, of course, because that's what happens.
Oh, I know.
Let's see. Oh, here's a good question from Aria. Thank you, Justin, for that. Appreciate your love for guitar in the Bay. Shout out in Murder Falcon. Any guitarist growing up or now that influenced you that deserve more attention?
Man, I feel like most of the guitarists that I love now are really are already well loved, but I'll mention a few.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna close the door because my kids are home from school.
Absolutely.
It would be gigs.
Bumblebee's like Old Yeller.
Brandon Ellis from the Black Dahlia Murder. He's their lead guitar player. He is incredible. I want to be friends with him. He seems like a cool person and a really amazing musician. There's a Californian named Julian, I believe it's pronounced Lage, Lage, Julian Lage, who is a jazz guitarist who is incredible and incredibly expressive. His stuff is fantastic, and I could listen to his stuff all day. So there's two for you. Two extremes of the guitarist spectrum.
Do you listen to music when you're writing and drawing?
I do. Hold on one sec. Sorry.
It's okay.
Hey, I want to call, so I can't talk right now. What's up? Hey. No.
Let me just put him on mute in case. Been loving Transformers and just recently read Do a Power Bomb. Oh, it's so good.
Okay, sorry. What was the question?
What was the question? I was wondering about music. You were talking about guitarists, so I was wondering if you listen to music when you're writing scripts or when you're drawing, and is it always the Transformers soundtrack from the movie? Because that soundtrack is amazing.
Funny. It's like I am actually writing Transformers scripts to the Transformers soundtrack like every single time I write it. It's actually like it's embarrassing because it's like that's so like. It's so like it's like so basic, you know, like that shouldn't be the case, but that is totally what is happening. Like my favorite character is Optimus Prime. I listen to the soundtrack when I write the scripts, and I write Starscream like a bad guy. What can I say? I'm not like, you know, the biggest thing I've done is kill Bumblebee. Let's be honest here.
Oh man, I'm wearing my "You've Got the Touch" shirt because I obviously love that soundtrack. And
heck yeah.
I remember when we were at New York Comic Con in that panel, and Tom, I think it was Tom Riley that was talking about the how he draws to the soundtrack of Transformers, even though he's working on G.I. Joe, because it's that good of a soundtrack.
So good. It's so good.
Now, my wife is a big fan of your Transformers comics, and she was the one that pointed out, "Oh my gosh, you're doing wrestling moves," because she also knows you're a big fan of wrestling. And people in the chat are wondering, how big of a wrestling fan are you? Does this come from your childhood or your adulthood?
Definitely my adulthood. I was not allowed to watch wrestling growing up.
Oh, that's right, violence.
Yep. And that was like the Attitude Era, so like too many bikinis, I think, for my mom and dad.
Oh, there's that. Yep.
And then I was not really into it growing up because I had no previous love for it. But I started getting exposed to it by other fellow comic book artists, specifically New Japan Pro Wrestling. This was in like 2017. And finally in 2018, after my daughter was born, I took the plunge and tried out New Japan. I started watching it a little bit here and there. And then I really got into it once the G1 Climax started in 2018, summer 2018. G1 Climax 28, and I saw Tomohiro Ishii fight Kota Ibushi, and it was just incredible. You know, I'd never seen anything like that, and American wrestling's nothing like that, and it's been a great source of inspiration since 2018. It's been something. I really, really love it. It's
since 2018?
Yeah.
Dude, I thought that was in your blood. Like the way you, well, I mean, you know, would do a power bomb and other stories like that. I was like, oh, this guy's been a fan for a long time. That's
what can
cool.
I say, bro? I mean, like when I find something new, I get into it, and it became like part of my life, and it still is. And I just had I never had any sort of gateway into it. You know, like I didn't have friends that were into it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any sort of community that was associated with that at all. But once I started making more connections in comics and seeing all the different things that people are getting into from all different parts of the world and different subcultures, and you know, it's not just WWE, it's like New Japan Pro Wrestling. What the heck is a New Japan Pro Wrestling? You know, it's like you're going the next like 2 levels down. It was just really exciting to watch, and honestly, like as a person whose job it is to make cool stuff like all the time, I'm over here like, okay, how do I keep making this stuff? How do I keep myself inspired? And honestly, it requires me in some ways to have this like very inquisitive mind that's willing to dive deep on a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
This could be anything from like music to guitar to like wrestling to golf. I love golfing. You just never
When did that
never.
start?
What's that?
When did the golfing start?
That started when I was a little kid. My grandfather forced me to play for like 10 years every time I'd go to his house in upstate New York. And then when
Okay.
COVID hit, I was like, it's time to take up golf again. And then I got really into it. And now I golf. During the summer, I golf like every weekend, 9 holes without fail. So never say never. Watch me make a golf comic that you will love.
Well, I just can't wait for it to show up in Transformers for some
Right?
reason.
Oh, you never know, dude. You just never know.
I love finding this about you. D-Dub, I gotta say, you brought a little bit of childhood trauma back. That was his job to my life when you murdered Bumblebee. Wasted no time at all. At least Prime lasted 3/4 through the movie. Love your work. Was it really 3/4?
I think it was
No, I
more
think
like,
they offed
I
him
think it was
real
like right,
early.
yeah, first third, like the third mark, maybe half, maybe. But yeah, Bumblebee didn't get any respect at all, and I have no plans on bringing him back anytime soon.
So speaking of plans and bringing him back and Transformers, yeah, people are wondering, and I've always wondered too how this works. When you were offered to write Transformers, is it one of these things you stay as long as you want to, or is it like 12 issues, 24 issues? And if you can't
Well,
discuss that, that's cool too.
yeah, I can't comment on it exactly because we're still working things out.
Okay.
I'll be here for sure for 12 issues, and as far
Mhm.
as the rest, we shall see.
We shall see. Okay. Because as soon as the next guy takes over, they're bringing Bumblebee back.
You think so? Dude, you never know. What if
This
my
it's
contract it says Bumblebee shall stay dead from
that
here
is
to
true.
eternity?
That is true. I have not seen your contract, but it's comic books. Um, so yeah, people are commenting on your love of wrestling, and that's really cool that you're doing all of this. I don't know how many golfers we have in the chat, though.
Probably not many.
Yeah, you don't know. I just love your enthusiasm that comes across through the paper. Can't wait to see you of more of your work, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much. This looks like a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. That makes me think of AEW, my favorite wrestling promotion.
Okay, so people are asking, who are your favorite wrestlers?
Oh, definitely Kenny Omega. If I had to give one, it'd probably be Kenny because he was there from the beginning. He was in the G1 Climax, the tournament that I mentioned earlier, and I followed him from Japan to America when they started AEW. He was he's one of the executive vice presidents there. And you know, I just I don't really know who he is as a person, so I don't know if he's cool or not, but I hope he's a cool guy, and I'd love to meet him someday. And I don't know, he's just awesome, and I like his attitude towards wrestling. He's so passionate about it. He's also into other things that aren't wrestling. Like he really digs fighting games. You know, he's not just a wrestler.
Do you like golf? How does he feel about golf?
So he did do during the pandemic. He did do a
Okay.
He did do a segment at a golf course where it's
He
very
did?
clear he's never golfed before, and I think that maybe solidified him as my favorite wrestler.
Oh, when you said fighting games, I'll be honest with you. That's how I found out about Japanese wrestling. I used to import. I had a Sega Saturn, still do, and I imported every fighting game, and a couple of them were like Japanese wrestling fighting games. And I thought, oh, well, I don't speak Japanese, but this is too cool to pass up. They're throwing fireballs. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was in for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, people are big fans. I was just listening to Kenny Omega's intro battle cry on my workout mix. Great call, D-Dubs.
Great song.
Bunkmaster B owns a lot of your original artwork, by the way. He is huge fan. He is a huge fan.
That's great. Thank you for the support.
And my grandpa had me play as well. The biggest issue, I outgrew his clubs fast. So you mentioned your childhood with Transformers. What about comics? Where did that start?
That was definitely like Sunday comic strips.
Okay.
Loved those. Calvin and Hobbes, for sure. The biggest
yes.
one. But then I remember our newspaper stopped getting Calvin and Hobbes because it stopped. And some papers got the reruns of Calvin and Hobbes and some didn't. And my paper did not. So I started seeing them at the library. So I'd get the Calvin and Hobbes books from the library. And then Calvin and Hobbes gave way to Tintin books. And then from Tintin on to The Dark Knight Returns.
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like going through as I got a little older. Batman Year One, Ranma 1/2.
God bless you. That's one of my favorite Rumiko Takahashi's manga. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is great. Let's see, Hellsing. Like now we're getting a little more. Metal Guardian Faust, like some more manga. And
did you say Metal Guardian Faust? Nobody knows what the hell that is, dude. What? I love Metal Guardian Faust.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Tsuru Uyama. It's his only English thing translated into English.
Yep. We got it in single issues, and then I bought the one. It was a trade paperback back then. I know I'm going to be corrected, and people are like, "That's a tankobon." It was a trade paperback. Okay.
It was like it was like $16, and my mom got it for me at Barnes and Noble, and changed my life. I mean, it was so good. And the story is a little bit nonsense, but I'm very proud of myself because that was like when I was 13 or 14, maybe. And I forgot that I had it. And I was going through my old stuff, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this? This is amazing!" You know, as an adult. And I was like, "Yeah, I had my finger on the pulse, man. It was cool."
Your finger on the pulse, hell yeah!
You like when I was young, like I knew quality, like I could spot it. So I felt pretty cool about myself that day.
This is a really good question. If you were, because obviously you are a manga fan, and did Akira Toriyama's passing hit you?
It was pretty intense. You know, Toriyama's Dragon Ball, not so much Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball. Reading that manga, you know, that was the first time that I thought to myself, it'd be cool to do a tournament comic someday.
Yeah, big.
Yeah, so without Dragon Ball, I don't know if Do Powerbomb would be here today.
I mean, it's amazing how much Toriyama inspired just so much, like not just comics or video games. It's insane to think about it. Or wrestling, right? A lot of wrestlers were honoring him. It's really cool. Can you tell us why you focus so much on deep personal trauma in your stories? I think the human aspect is why you have so many fans, because they can really sympathize with the characters. This is true. Seriously. Because you're fooled into thinking you're reading a comic book about a freaking Falcon that can be teleported. The sound of the guitar, but it's a deep and powerful story.
Well, thank you very much for that compliment. And thanks for the question. I think I'm just trying to tell stories that I feel matter. I don't want to make too many blanket statements, but I do feel genre fiction as a whole, from novels to comic books to movies, can sometimes be used as a way. It can be treated a little bit like escapism, which is not inherently a bad thing. I just don't have an interest in making stories like that. I really, if I am able to, I want to be able to tie it into things that I'm actually feeling in the real world and process what I'm going through as a person, if that makes sense. So, you know, it's the only way I know how to write is to like put my absolute heart and soul into what you're getting. So, I think ultimately, you know, I'm trying to make things that connect with other people because I am very outgoing. I'm a very outgoing person. I love getting real, but I also love having fun. So why not have my cake and eat it too? You know, like I've always loved action scenes and drawing punches and kicks and laser guns and stuff. And that's what I love about genre fiction. It's something that's so fun and brings a lot of people together. And why can't we have some something that's a little deeper, something that's honest? I don't know. I don't want to sound like I don't appreciate stuff that maybe goes a little lighter, because I totally do, and there's definitely a place for that. That's totally valid and the best. It's just not my style, and I only know how to write one way, unfortunately.
Well, obviously, it shows just how many of us really enjoy your work, and how many of us are pushing for oversized hardcover collections of your work, like Beta Ray Bill Gallery Edition, man.
Oh man,
you make that happen.
Talk to Marvel. I don't know.
Oh, I do. It's one of my most. I slide it into an email whenever they send me a list of books. I'm like, hey, you know what would be a good gallery edition? Just saying. Because I mean, Wonder Woman came out in a nice hardcover. That Wonder Woman Dead Earth
And it's
And
still, I think it's still selling because they haven't made a softcover edition.
no, not yet. You're
Or
right.
maybe they don't do that for those square books. I don't know, but
They do eventually. It takes them a little bit, but
it came
not
out a
yet.
long time ago. It came out in like the last issue came out
Oh,
in 2020.
yeah, and the hardcover came out in 2021. So you're right. It's been a couple of years. And
Actually, I don't know if it came out in 2020. I think the hardcover came out right before Christmas 2020. 20
really?
not I think I'm almost positive the Wonder Woman hardcover came
Mhm.
out right before Christmas 2020. Yes. I
Wow.
could be
Well, you
wrong, but
you would know. You would know.
well, because issue 4 came out maybe in August or September,
Mhm.
which was the last one, and I think then they
They
made it
wrapped that
into
up. All I know is in 2021, it was one of my favorite reads. It was
hell
amazing.
yeah.
It was
Oh, that's
so
great.
fun. My wife loved. That's when my wife fell in love because I've been pushing her to read like Murder Falcon. She's like, "It looks so silly," and I'm like, "God, it's got a lot of heart," because she loves stories with badass action
Oh, it's
and
awesome. I
heart.
love it.
And then she read Wonder Woman Earth, as she told you, because of our book club, and she was like, "Oh, that's the guy? Oh, so good. Now I need to go back." Now she's hooked on single issues of your Transformers.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, she kind of like she started with a big hardcover and then went somewhere else. And people are enjoying your Jurassic League, by the way.
Oh, awesome.
So thank you for that, Lenny Laserdisc. Now, before we wrap up, I did want to ask if what you can tell us, like where can people find your future work when you're not working on Transformers, when you're not kickstarting your Extremity? What's happening in the life of Daniel Warren Johnson when he's not golfing every weekend in the summer?
Well, when July hits, my collected edition of Space Mullet will be reprinted.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first 4 chapters, along with the fifth additional chapter. So it'll be pretty chunky. It'll be like 230 pages or something. It will be soft cover. I apologize, um, but it's a little bit of a look into my very first thing that I ever really started doing to get into
Yeah.
comics in the first place. So it's definitely proto Dan, which is a little embarrassing. But, you know, I've always really appreciated seeing where artists have come from, and it's almost kind of encouraging to see like what they looked like in the early days and watching them grow. And it is like a flip book, of my personal artistic growth in Space Mullet, because I was only doing 2 pages a week. So it's like 2.5, 3 years of work that you're flipping through there, even though it's only like 230 pages. So
So this new collection will have everything in it?
there's how many chapters are there now? There's 4, 5, there's 7 chapters up now, so this will have
Mhm.
5.
Okay.
There's 7 chapters on the website. This will have the first 5 chapters.
Because I've got the previous trade paperback. It might be the same printing as it. All
It
right.
is
So,
basically the same printing with one additional chapter. It was been out of print for a
oh,
long time,
mhm.
and like I don't want people to have to pay obscene amounts of money for Space Mullet on eBay. That's just not right.
See, that's why we do polls here for reprints. That's why I reach out to publishers when is this hardcover going to come out. My viewers really want it back, so that's why I do what I do. All right, my buddy Ben gets the last question. Now that you've written an official Star Wars story with Vader, Black, White, and Blood, any chance we can get an official release of Green Leader and Old Man Skywalker?
Oh man, I don't think that will ever happen.
Sorry, Ben.
I did that. I did it for one reason, and it was just to have fun. And Green Leader was in 2015, and I was getting like flack from other creators being like, "You should be making your own IP. You shouldn't be doing Star Wars fan comics." And I was like, I just want to have fun with this. I just want to get. I just have this thing in my blood that I got to get out, and let's just go for it. Let me just do it, and I'm gonna print it off, and I'll just basically give it away. I'll just be like, hey, donation based, whatever. I'm just trying. I just don't want to get killed on my printing costs, and it just people really got excited about it. That being said, it's totally unlicensed, totally off the grid. It's like for the first 500 copies that I made, I was literally stapling them together at my house. um, and it's something that I've kind of done just because it helps keep it pure. If you're doing something for like no money with no no corporate involvement, no Lucasfilm, no nothing. It's just there's an element of freedom which just cannot be beat. It's like a joy to make.
You were
That's how it's
stapling
been.
them?
What's that?
You were stapling them?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
So
we need that reprinted in a big hardcover format, Daniel.
Right. I bring my pages. I bring these like pages, the nice printed off page to Kinko's, and then it'd be me like in 500 copies, like ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Next one, compile it, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, while like watching The Office for the 5th time or whatever.
In the background, or the Golden Bachelor.
Or The Bachelor. I'm not. I won't turn my back on The Bachelor. I still watch that show.
But yeah, what future work do you have coming out that you can talk? You don't have to go into detail, just so people that love
Space
your
Mode's
work.
coming out again.
Okay.
There is a hardcover of Extremity coming out that you said. There's 2 more days left on the Kickstarter. Super exciting. Thank you for everybody that's already supported it.
And I did leave a link in the description of the video if you want to go and check that out. Yes. And it's also in the chat.
I also I am writing a book that someone else is drawing. This is not Transformers. Someone else is drawing about 80% of it. I'm drawing about 20%. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really special. It's different. Look for some announcements around July. That'll be a creator-owned book. And I'm always working. I got things in the works. Not a ton of stuff I can talk about, but things are happening. And it's very exciting.
So people will see your work in future projects. That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
So you're getting some praise again. Mr. Johnson, I wasn't a fan of Transformers until a friend suggested I pick up your book. I've always thought it was silly. Thanks for making me a new fan.
That's awesome. Oh man, that makes me so happy. Thank you for saying that. That makes me feel good and helps me sleep better at night and wondering if I've made good stuff or bad stuff. So, which I still, self-doubt is still a very real thing. Thank you very much for that.
You've made great stuff. And at this moment, I just want to thank you again for being here. I want to thank Shannon and the folks at Skybound for helping put this together. And you are always welcome back, especially if you want to talk about your hardcover release of Do a Power Bomb. Whenever we get that. No rush. We just big fans. Big fans of big art.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the warm welcome, and I appreciate the encouraging words.
Absolutely. It's what we do. Everybody hit that like button on the way out and check out the links that we have in the description, and go and check out Daniel Warren Johnson's YouTube live streams on Friday nights, as my wife said earlier. Have a great one, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there.